Welcome aboard to this Honda Civic. But this isn't just a regular Honda Civic. This one's the top-of-the-line Sport Touring trim, which has an upgraded 180 horsepower engine, heated and perforated seats, a 9-inch head unit plus 10-inch digital gauges, lots of standard safety tech including a blind spot indicator, remote start, and best of all, this one's a hatchback. Welcome aboard to the 2022 Honda Civic Hatchback Sport Touring. Let's get started. Let's begin by taking a look at the exterior of this Honda Civic hatchback. Beginning with the front end, I really like these full LED headlights, daytime running lights, and turn signals. I think that these absolutely look fantastic. They're very minimalistic in my opinion. I also like the front grille with the little honeycomb pattern going on there. I like how the bodywork slightly goes over the grille. I really like the bottom grille assembly too. And because this is the Sport Touring, we also get LED fog lights. I think this meteorite gray metallic looks fantastic on the Civic and it really pops in the sun. The side profile of the new Civic is honestly one of my favorite side profiles in any compact car. I love the clean body line on the top that goes from the front to the back. I also really like these 18-inch wheels. These are some of the best looking wheels on any compact car today, but they still have a decent amount of rubber, giving you a relatively smooth ride. We also have upgraded mirrors on the Sport Touring, which have LED turn signals built in, plus they're door mounted, which are significantly more aerodynamic. Working our way toward the back, you can see the major differences between the Civic Hatchback and the Civic Sedan here. Now, they both have the same wheelbase, but the Civic Hatchback is just a smidge shorter, plus it has a unique taillight profile. It's got these LED taillights with halogen turn signals and halogen reverse lights, although I do like the fact that they're amber, and they're connected together with this really nice light bar with the Honda badge placed perfectly centered underneath. I also like how we have a fake diffuser on the back to break up the back bumper, plus we have real dual exhaust pipes on the back, plus we have a rear wiper back here, which is a benefit of the hatchback over the sedan. Not to mention, you do get a larger opening so you can put more stuff in this. Overall, the hatchback is a little bit more practical than the sedan, plus you get the option of a 6-speed manual. And how can I forget about the optional moonroof that's actually standard on this Sport Touring? Now, while the latest Honda Civic hatchback has a nicely understated exterior, let's go ahead and take a look at the fully loaded interior, where I have one of the best interiors on a modern compact hatchback. This dashboard really is the center of the show. Not only is it a squidgy soft touch material, but it also has this really nice honeycomb texture on the air vents, which looks incredibly classy. Plus, we have these little joysticks to adjust the vents too. We also have fully physical climate controls. We'll get to that later. But let's start with the steering wheel. I love how this is a really supple, leather-wrapped wheel with nice stitching on it. I like the little bits of silver on the bottom too. That part's really nice. It's got just the perfect amount of gloss black to break it up. Over here are your cruise controls. We also have adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist. Over here are your radio controls, including your back and next buttons and your volume controls. You can actually jump quite a bit in volume with each notch. Over here's your voice control, and these two thumb wheels, which are on the left and right side of the steering wheel, configure your fully digital driver's display. I like how you have analog style gauges, but you also have a digital speedometer. You can see so much information on this screen, even though it's not as customizable as its competitors. You can see audio information if you want to, which I really like, and the right side can do a couple different things. You can see oil life, your attention level, which is pretty cool, and you can even see your compass plus your trip computer and just a lot of information. You can also customize the style of this digital display too, so you don't have to have round gauges. You can also configure it to have a bar style plus minimal versions of those two. Over here we have your fuel gauge, and on the left side we have your oil temp gauge. A feature I really like about this fully digital gauge cluster is the ability to read speed signs. So for example, if the speed limit's 30 miles an hour, it'll put a little red tick right over here so I know exactly when to slow down. The steering column itself is also really nice too. It's got built-in paddle shifters to control the CVT transmission. It simulates speeds by breaking it up into 7 speeds. Over here are your wiper controls. We have intermittency settings you push down to activate, and we even have rear wiper controls too. On the left side are your turn signals. These feel very nicely dampened in my opinion. You have full headlight controls as well as your fog lights. Plus we have a fully tilting and telescoping steering wheel, allowing you to get really comfortable in your Civic. I like how the joystick design continues onto this side too. You can actually open and close this vent as well. Down here adjusts your gauge cluster brightness. And down here you have your parking sensors, your traction control off, and this button allows you to customize your safety systems. So you can enable or disable your road departure mitigation, blind spot information system, which is built into the mirrors, low speed braking control, and collision mitigation braking system. My favorite is the blind spot information system, but keep in mind, this is a touring feature. Now let's take a look at the door panel. I love how the off-white leather extends its way onto the door panel, plus we have a soft touch area right over here. We have one touch down and up for your front windows, but unfortunately not your back windows. You got your typical Honda door lock controls and mirror controls, which are all very easy to use. We also have a nice bit of gloss black on here, and I really like this big metal door handle. And a nice upgrade we get on the Touring are these soft touch door panels, which is really nice to see. However, it is just hard plastic down here, but you do get a decent sized door pocket, and this is where your feet are going to be going anyway, so this is just nice and easy to wipe down. I also like this little texture they put on here too. I also really like the engine start stop button. It turns red when it's on, and it actually flashes white when it's ready to be turned on. Now, of course, the star of the show is this head unit with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is actually off of my phone that is being used to film this. I also like how we have fully physical buttons right here, and the head unit is actually pretty easy to use too. You can see your trip computer, and as you can see, we have about 280 miles of range on 3/4 of a tank, which isn't terrible. And you can see your gas mileage as well. Even though this is not a super accurate reading, it's still nice to see anyway. I also like how all of the buttons are physical. You have your back and next buttons on the head unit with a physical volume dial that makes it very easy to jump from a low volume to a high volume. I also like that it has a matte screen, meaning it's not going to attract a ton of fingerprints, and it's always going to stay looking pretty good. We also have a bunch of shortcut buttons down here too, and you can easily adjust the brightness of the screen here too. Now, even though this is the top-of-the-line Sport Touring, the backup system is still a little bit basic. It's just a regular camera with a bunch of parking sensors, but you can switch between 3 different modes: a fisheye, a regular, and a top-down, which is really nice when you're trying to line your back bumper up to something in a parking spot or in your garage. You can see that even though we don't have a 360-degree camera, we do have parking sensors. This down here is the star of the show in my opinion. Fully physical and easy to use dual zone climate controls. You can adjust your temperature on either side. You can hit this easy button to sync it if you want. You can change your air direction just like so. You have fully heated seats for both of the front passenger seats, and you can enable and disable your AC just like that, along with your rear defogger and heated mirrors, which is also really nice. I love how the fan speed is built right into the dial as a little screen. How neat is that? Down here, you have a bit of an upgraded tech station on the Touring and Sport Touring for the hatchback. You have a little 12-volt socket here, USB-A charge port, USB-A connection and charge port, plus a wireless charger which can be enabled and disabled by pressing and holding this button, and it'll light up green to let you know that it's working. Here is your shifter for your continuously variable transmission, or CVT. It's actually pretty smooth. And down here you have your drive mode selector. So you can put it into sport mode, normal mode, or econ mode. I'll talk more about those in my driving impressions. This is one of my favorite buttons right here. If you press this, this basically turns off the ability for the engine to shut off on idle, which I really like. I don't like when the engine shuts off at stoplights, so I always click this button every time I turn the car on. Down here is your electromechanical parking brake, plus your brake hold, which is really nice on hills. Over here are your cup holders with 2 teeth per cup holder. I do wish it had 4 teeth, but it holds my cup in here just fine. The Honda Civic also has a lot of storage. We can take a look at the center console, which has this really nice tray system, which I really like. You can snap that in and put some little shortcut things here that you may need to quickly access. Since the center console is insanely large for this class, it's definitely larger than what a Corolla hatchback or a Volkswagen Golf offers. That part is greatly appreciated, and I really like how there's this soft touch material on top for you to put your arm on and grip your steering wheel with ease. We also have a decent sized glove box with just enough room for the user's manual. However, it's not lockable, which I wish it was. Making our way toward the overhead console, we have your door controls, your LED dome lights. I also like that we have a sunglass holder here too, plus sunroof controls for our available moonroof, which we get on the Touring, allowing us to bring all of that beautiful sun in there, but it's quite cold today, so let's close that back up. We can, however, let the light in with this little cover though. Over here, we have your sun visors with a convenience light on this trim level, and you can fully extend them too. On this trim, we also get an auto-dimming mirror with HomeLink garage door openers, and I do want to make a comment about visibility since I made the same comment about the Civic sedan. It's quite low and quite wide, but you won't notice a visibility difference between the sedan and the hatchback, in my personal opinion. I absolutely love the color of these seats. In my opinion, this is the perfect color for an automotive interior. I love how they're fully perforated, heated, and they have bigger bolsters compared to the base trims, and I think that these seats would be extremely comfortable on a long drive. They're incredibly supportive, and they're power for both the driver and the passenger on the Touring and Sport Touring models. I also really like how they have arrows depicting what direction which parts of the seat adjustment go. So this one goes back and forward, this one goes up and down, this one goes up and down, and this one goes back and forward. Really nice touch. One thing I will criticize about the passenger seat is even on the top trim level, we don't have a height adjustable seat. So come on, Honda, we gotta get a height adjustable seat on the top trim. So the front area of the Honda Civic hatchback is a really nice place to be, especially in the Sport Touring model. But the back seat offers plenty of legroom and a decent amount of headroom too, although it's not any different from the sedan. In the Sport Touring, or Touring if it's in a sedan, we get these two USB-A ports. Now I am going to excuse this since this is a 2022, but I really hope we start to see USB-C in these Honda Civics pretty soon. We don't get any kind of air vents or anything up here, unfortunately, so that's definitely a downside, but the air from the front is plenty to make it back here since this is such a small car. Now, the door panels are roughly the same as the front, except we get this hard plastic back here, which honestly isn't a big deal because we have a nice padded armrest and a nice padded area here too, plus the texture carries on to the back. However, I do wish we had one touch up and down windows. Definitely disappointing to see, but I really like this metal door handle. Down here, we have a giant bottle pocket with some hard plastic, meaning it'll be pretty easy to wipe down. The back seats also have the same perforation that the front seats do. These are actually pretty comfortable and have a decent amount of bolstering. The center armrest is decent with two different sizes of cup holders. However, I do wish they had little teeth in them, but not a big deal seeing as we get an armrest in the first place. And of course, you get a grab handle and a dome light. We also have our door pockets right here. However, I do wish we got a driver's side door pocket, but that's honestly to be expected at this price point. One thing that's different about the sedan versus the hatchback is that the seats can actually be folded from the inside. Since we have full access to the hatchback area, we pull this little clicker. Although I do wish it was automatic, it is hydraulic, and we can gain access to the inside. We definitely have a much bigger opening than the sedan, but we have relatively the same space since we have a shorter wheelbase. If we pull this little guy up, we actually have a false floor with completely open access to our spare tire. That part is really nice. I also like how on the hatch we have these little tie-down points on both sides. Very clever. We also have a speaker back here too, and a little halogen convenience light. Plus, we can fold the seats forward incredibly easily just by pushing them down like that, gaining access to what is basically a van now because of how big of an opening we have. So you can put a plethora of different things back here. If you're planning on putting like a mountain biker in here or something like that, the hatchback is definitely better than the sedan. Plus, we have this little parcel shelf which opens like this and hooks on, meaning that you can actually have some kind of privacy in your hatchback when the door is closed. But let's go ahead and close this Civic hatchback and take a look at the driving impressions. So, how is the Honda Civic hatchback to drive? Well, in my opinion, at low speeds, it drives indistinguishably from an 8-speed automatic transmission, such as that you'd find in a Volkswagen Jetta. But at higher speeds, you will definitely find it rev hanging just a little bit longer. But for the average person, it's honestly not a deal breaker. It's a pretty well done CVT. You can also adjust how it shifts with the drive modes. So right now I'm in Econ mode, so it'll keep the revs nice and low in order to save fuel, but I can also put it into sport mode to make the revs nice and high so it's very easy to respond, or I can just keep it in normal where it's kind of somewhere in the middle. The CVT is actually incredibly responsive the second I put my foot to the floor, and that part I really like. However, changing the driving modes doesn't change the steering feel. The steering feel is actually relatively good. The steering is light,
but it's very easy to point the vehicle in the direction you're going. It's not the loosest steering I've ever driven, but it's also not the tightest. It's somewhere in the middle, and I think for most people, it's gonna be perfectly fine, especially if you've driven other Hondas. You will know exactly how this steers. It's actually right on par with the Volkswagen Jetta, but a little bit better than the Toyota Corolla hatchback in my opinion. The cruise control is also really easy to use. All of the buttons are where you need them to be. I also love how the climate controls are all physical, meaning I don't even have to look at them to use them. And one thing I really like is that this Touring model has this upgraded head unit, and so it's really easy to see what I'm doing without having to really turn my head too far. It's right in my peripheral vision, which I really appreciate. Now, pedal feel is pretty good too. Even though we have a top-mounted pedal, I like how they're stainless, by the way, there is a pretty good throttle curve and it's incredibly easy to control. Plus, the brake feel is just perfectly good. Like, it's not too bad, it's not amazing, it's somewhere in the middle, it's not too sensitive either, which I really appreciate. Another note I would like to make, since this is the Sport Touring model, is the fact that we have power seats, so I have a lot more adjustment. So I'm definitely a lot more comfortable in this seat than I was in the Honda Civic Sport that I was just reviewing a little bit earlier. I have a lot more leg support here, I have a lot more bolster support here, plus they're heated, which I really appreciate in a wintry climate like we're in today. I can also rock out with these upgraded Bose speakers, which definitely sound better than the Civic Sport. So one thing I want to talk about real quick is that this one has 6,248 miles on it, which makes this a certified used vehicle or a certified pre-owned Honda, which is really nice. It doesn't even really feel used, and you save about $2,000 to $3,000 over the brand new 2024. You get pretty much all of the same stuff, although I do wish we had Type C. That's a minor drawback, but honestly not that big of a deal, considering you can get this for only a couple grand more than a brand new base model, and you get all the creature comforts like heated seats, you get the nice leather, you get the fully digital display. Everything is just so much nicer in this one. So in my opinion, I recommend you get a slightly used one over a brand new one, just because of the savings you get with the little amount of miles that have been put on it already. It's just barely been broken in.
Now, this Honda Civic is $31,000 brand new, but the one we're looking at today is $30,000 used with 6,000 miles on it. This one's fully loaded, plus you can get a 6-speed manual transmission. The sedan does not have an option for the 6-speed manual transmission on the Touring. The Civic Si, however, is only $29,000 with 20 more horsepower, a standard 6-speed manual transmission, a limited slip diff, while also keeping the 9-inch head unit, but it has less interior amenities. But it gets crazier because the Integra is only a few $100s more than the Civic Sport Touring, and you get 20 more horsepower. However, you do lose most of the tech features, which cost another $5 grand to get on the Acura. So really, it's a choice between getting a fully loaded trim or the extra power. It's honestly up to you.
And it drives great too. Even though it has a CVT, it's honestly a pretty well-driving car nonetheless. And for that, I highly recommend this over something like a Toyota Corolla hatchback. It feels just a tad more luxurious, and it's still a decent price, just under the new car average. Thank you so much for watching my review of it, and I hope you guys check out my other reviews. And as always, drive safe.